What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Devy YouTube channel. I am your host, as always, Kevin Coleman, and we're back, and we're going to be talking about 2024 tight ends. So we've been going over the 2024 class here on the channel. We did quarterbacks a little while ago. We did running backs, wide receivers the last 2 weeks, and now we're looking at tight ends. Tight ends don't get the love that a lot of the positions do, but the 2024 tight ends are a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of value to be had in this class, and we're going to be looking at the top 5. Then we're going to be going through some metrics, some scouting tips, things about him, things they compare to, giving some comparisons, and then we'll be talking about players on your radar that you should be watching. I know Devy, you get concerned with tight ends. Some people say they don't matter, but that is not true. They do matter. We're going to be looking at where the value could be had, who you should be drafting, who's worth a pick in Devy, or just in general, if you're a college football fan, let's talk about the top 5 guys who could get you up at the top. So let's hit, while that intro is going, hit that like and subscribe button so that you don't miss anything from this channel. All right, like I said, we're going to go through the top 5. So let's just start with the easy one, the layup, the slam dunk. Brock Bowers, 6'4", 230 out of Georgia. You see the numbers on the screen, what he does. 1,800 yards, over 100 catches. We see that 20 touchdown mark for his career. Brock was someone that I had highlighted 2 years ago before he even stepped foot on Georgia's campus out of Napa. And I said, hey, this kid's got it. Sometimes with tight ends, you see that athleticism, you see that speed, those type of things that Brock has had, and he has it right from the start. And so I'm going to tip my cap to myself on that one because I called it. I got the receipts to prove it. And I think that when you look at it, a lot of people have him as their tight end one overall, even with Mayer out there. And we've seen Mayer, we've seen his kind of advanced stats and everything that we see there. So Brock is definitely at that one position, right? So when we're talking about who's the number one, who's going to be that one in that category, I think it's got to be Brock. And I don't think there's really a question mark whether or not, that should be the case. Now, if we're looking at scouting wise, I think athleticism stands out. You saw him do a little bit of different stuff this year. You saw him run the ball. I think he had over a 60-yard touchdown rush too. They used him a lot of different ways. So I think he's pretty versatile in terms of his athleticism. He's going to test well. He's going to test a lot better than Mayer is going to test in terms of the combine. So the RAS score is going to be there. I like his size. He's not too big. So we're not talking 6'6", 6'7" category. He's got a good enough frame to put more weight on. So 230, 245 is probably where he's going to get to considering he's got another year at Georgia when we're looking at that strength and conditioning program there. Awareness that coaches talk about how he picked up the offense really quick. He got in there as soon as a true freshman. Remember, he took over, and Eric Gilbert was supposed to be that guy, and he just took over the entire room. Darnell Washington as well, and he picked up on the offense. Georgia coaches talked about it. His ability to kind of manipulate different levels of the field. He knows where to sit and zone. He's pretty good against man, and I think that awareness, when you're looking at that, I think that's the case. Like, hey, knowing where to go. He thinks the game. He's cerebral. Those type of things for a tight end matter, right? Now, as far as weaknesses, remember, we're just nitpicking Bowers. We're trying to figure out, okay, what doesn't he necessarily do well? They talk about press coverage, and I think one area they talk about it is inline. He struggles a little bit. So when we're talking about inline or like lining up at the slot or on the outside, inline, they talk about him being able to get bumped off his routes from those linebackers, from those type of guys. And I think that's something to highlight. I think that's something to note. Hey, okay, something's going on there in terms of like, hey, his press coverage, where he can get hit off of his routes, especially in line, where that strength matters. So that size is going to come. And if he gets a little bit stronger, he's going to be able to kind of get off the line quicker, right? Separation too is highlighted. It talks about, hey, he's a good 50-50 guy. He's a good catching traffic guy, but he does struggle with separation and nuance of route running. I think he's a pretty good seam route runner. So I don't necessarily think it's I put weakness on here just to kind of nitpick. Not a terrible weakness. There's something he's going to be able to improve on. Remember, he's still young, trying to figure out where he's going in terms of where that looks like. Now, we'd like to do some advanced stats here, and this one's adjusted receiving yards per team pass attempt. And so when you're looking at this, obviously the cut line is the average of tight ends with that top, when you're looking at that top 12 NFL season and where he's going to be. So you find Bowers there. Look at his freshman year, everybody. He just absolutely dominated. Ingram, Kyle Pitts, Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers. I try to put some guys in here and maybe have some comps for him, even TJ Hawkinson's in there. So when you're looking at Brock, I mean, he's absolutely demolished 2 years in a row of production, right? So when you're thinking of that, Mayer, though, had a great junior year. So we're going to see, where does Bowers fit there? Where does he fit in this offense? Georgia definitely did a better job of getting receivers in the transfer portal, and they've got some guys coming back. So when you're looking at that, Maybe that's going to eat into his receiving yards per team pass attempt. But again, you're looking at that. Now, the next one's a dominator rating. You're going to see Brock had an unreal dominator rating in his freshman year. This last year, he's right behind Mayer was when he was a sophomore. Mayer, again, had a very, very good junior season. So when you're looking at that, there's the average tight ends of the top 12 NFL season. He's right there. So Brock is there in terms of all the analytics and the metrics. Now, number 2, Jatavian Sanders from Texas. This kid is legit, man. I love watching him play. He did play his freshman year, but you can see that it's all goose eggs. He played a little bit of special teams, not so much on the field, but he did not. Hey, he's eligible for this year. He's a 2024 kid. This season, in an up and down year at Texas, 54 catches, 613 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And when you're projecting these guys, and I think this is one of those things I'm talking about with tight ends, you're projecting athleticism. You're going to see why some guys are in my top 5 that are there. It's because of athleticism and what they can bring to the table. And I think Sanders is one of those guys that's definitely been. Remember, he came into high school or college, like maybe being a DN, maybe being an athlete. What is he going to be? And he's kind of found a role as a tight end hybrid guy, and he's a legitimate athlete, right? So when we're thinking of what projection for it, he's that. He was kind of that number 2 guy, I guess, on Texas, depending on what you think of with that offense. He's going to step into an offense with Quinn Ewers next year, have that solidified, hey, production there. Like Sanders could really take that next step, and he's right in that tier. Like when we're thinking of like, hey, could someone catch Bowers? I mean, if he tests well, they're talking about Darnell Washington being good this year. Imagine Darnell Washington with like Sanders is basically, but with production, right? That's what we're looking at. Now, as far as scouting goes and what he does well, so athleticism pops off. He's got that. He's going to test well. He's going to crush it. I think his yards after catch and hands are top notch. So his yards after catch, his ability to kind of go over there, go across the middle too. So sometimes he's able to kind of use those crossing routes. He gets out in open space. He's got enough speed to get to that point. So his yards after catch is good. He gets in space. He's going to be able to go. And he saw that multiple times this year for Texas. So that was really good there. I think his hands are really good. I mean, Texas had a ton of drops from other positions, not necessarily Sanders. There are times where you see that, you see the tape. There's always going to be some drops, but I thought he did really good. Thought he has soft hands, able to bring it in, those type of things. On the flip hand and weaknesses, I think separation is the key. So his inability to kind of separate at times. I think he has athleticism and yak, but again, like when you're looking at him and you're looking at some of these tight ends, and I think Christian talks about it all the time, blocking. Hey, can they block and can they create that separation? And those 2 things he struggles with a little bit. I think separation wise, I think that's more he's just new to the position. So again, we're projecting him, right? So he's new to the position, playing a little bit DN, tight end, all those different things in high school with what he worked on. So there's going to be that, right? Blocking's going to come. He's going to have to learn. I don't know necessarily he's going to get that in the Sark offense, but, moving forward, we look at that. Contested catches, that's where most of his drops come from, or his missed balls. So a lot of that stuff's coming from contested catches, so he's got to definitely improve that. Now, when we're looking at just kind of his advanced measure experience adjusted, here's his receiving yards per team pass attempts. I like to throw him in there with Pitts and Ingram again. Like we're looking, okay, where's he at? Hawkinson as well. So you're looking right there. He's right there, right behind Ingram. He's right in that area of what you're talking about for receiving yards per team pass attempt his sophomore year. And again, he's above Ingram, he's above Ebron, he's above Pitts, he's above Hawkinson. So this is when you profile. You got to love his profile moving forward and what it looks like, right? Remember projecting. Now, we got to see that consistency. Next year, I hope he has that consistency because he didn't play his freshman year. Now, sophomore, he has that year. Now, let's see that consistency moving forward. Now, my number 3 might be a little controversial for some. Michael Trigg, 6'3", 240, out of Ole Miss. Obviously had a down year last year. Didn't have the year that people thought. He's been injured, issues. Obviously, you see the screen. Not a ton of production. 24 catches, 265 yards, 4 touchdowns. The thing about Trigg, though, is he's got the upside of that, and he's got the athleticism, right? Maybe he's on the smaller side of 6'3", 6'4-ish, right? Where depending on where he's listed at, but you gotta hit the upside. He's one of the most athletic kids coming out of high school. He went to USC, transferred over to Ole Miss, and he just hasn't been able to get on the field. He scored 3 touchdowns in 1 game last year. Like you can see that he has potential, but is he going to be able to be utilized in that offense? I think that's the question mark. Now, from a scouting perspective, strengths, I mean, versatility. He could be inside and out. When you watch him in high school, he was able to get split wide. He did a lot of stuff wide in terms of, he was basically a wide receiver in high school. His hands are legitimate, and his athleticism, like those 3 things, like fit him. So when you're looking at okay, how do I fit this profile for the tight end? What am I looking for in this Devy? What am I doing? Because I think that's one of the biggest mistakes you see people make is at this position. You just project it here. Versatility, hands, and athleticism. Yep, check. Got all 3, right? Then on the flip hand, you have weaknesses. So production. Hey, hasn't had it. Not had a lot of production. I mean, that's something to highlight. He just has not produced at that elite level that you like to see. But not all tight ends do produce, right? So when we're thinking of like, hey, oh my gosh, production's been awful. How could you put him at 3? But you're projecting him based on his athleticism and getting into the NFL. So I think that's like the barometer for me. Injuries, yeah, he's had that. I know injury prone is not a real thing. injury analysts out there are going to yell at me, but I think, hey, he's definitely dealt with some injuries. And is that something to kind of look at? And in blocking, he's an athletic guy and he's a receiver. That's really what he's going to be. So those three areas are definitely going to be kind of the weaknesses point. Now, when you're looking at just his advanced stuff and his metrics that we like to see, I put some guys in there that like Musgrave. Luke Musgrave has not really played a ton. That's something to highlight. He's coming out now, but he's still getting some buzz there, right? George Kittle didn't have enough tons of production. Sam Laporta did. So I like to put him in there because considering like where he's at, those comps there. So you'll see Trig down there. He has not gone over that line in terms of the average of 12 tight, average of tight ends at a top 12 NFL season. He's in that area. Now, again, way to dominate win. He's not going to be high because he just hasn't been on the field. Now, if he gets on the field and we see him get above that line, I'd be more comfortable with him, right? But this is definitely a wild card. So again, if you want to just skip him, I would not or just like avoid him in drafts. I would not, fault you for that because this is definitely a wild card. Now, my fourth guy is the kid out of Clemson, Jake Brenningstool. Brenningstool kind of came in as a very hotly, touted recruit. This last year, finally got a little bit of run, 25 catches, 285 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So we definitely did see him kind of jump into that kind of role. He's going forward with Klubnik. He's going to maybe be that guy in that offense. So you're looking and saying, okay, this next year, his junior year, can he have that production as needed? Having Klubnik there, having a new offensive coordinator come in and Riley, like there's things that you like to see from Clemson, and are they going to be able to utilize him, right? Now, from a scouting perspective, I think his route running is really good. For him, it's his catch radius. Like anything that gets thrown to his side, his area, he's going to go get up there and catch it. Like, it's with his hands. He's got really, really tremendous ball skills. I think his ability to look the ball in. I think his, just all of those things about catching the football, he does it well. And if you wanted to put him at 3, I would not fault you in terms of just like that projection, right? He already has produced, right? He's going to be in Clemson's office. And because of those 3 things on the side, route running, catch radius, and ball skills, all about it. Weaknesses, blocking. I think his frame, he's got to add a little bit more muscle mass, especially at that 6'6", 230 mark. You liked him to get up to 240, 250 without losing kind of that speed and athleticism, but maybe 245 would be a fun number to get him to. Production as well, like kind of like Trig as well. Like, hey, where's that production? Can you take that next step? Get at least to 400 yards. Maybe get up to like that 40-yard or 40 catch yard, 40 catch season. Where that going to be? So that's where his strengths and weaknesses lie. When you look at just the numbers and advanced stuff, though, weighted dominator rating, hey, he's right there. I put him in there with Laporta, Trig, and Kittle, kind of added him to it. So he's close there his sophomore year. You see that. His dominator rating is there. And his receiving yards per attempt, again, he's right there. A little bit above Musgrave and Trig, but again, they're right very close in terms of where you're going to put them. Now, this next guy, it was hard for me to figure out where I wanted to do with this guy. So when we're thinking of like production, so there's guys out there like Bryson Nesbitt is one guy that we're going to be mentioning on this area of players to watch. And I think one thing that it's definitely led, and I definitely want to talk about this just really quick, is when you're talking about the tight end position, and you're talking about all these guys coming back. So I don't know if you guys have known, we're having a bunch of guys come back because of whatever the case may be, transfer portal or coming back for their 5th year. So how do you project these guys, right? So like, what do you do with a guy that comes back for his junior year, hasn't had a ton of production, and is there? So like a Cade Stover, right? That's another guy. I know Jeff's going to be mad at me because I didn't include him in this list in the top 5. Like, what do we do? So how do we project those guys? Like, I think that's really the big question mark going forward with this 5th position, like, or after those top 4, I really feel like there's a tier. That's why I'm kind of stopping this. There's a tier. Like, those guys are like your legitimate, like, hey, those are the guys that are going to take that next step forward. Those are the guys that I feel like have that ability to kind of be a tight end 1, right? Now it's like that projection. So let's dive into number 5, and then we're going to kind of talk about him. So number 5 with Jaheim Bell, when you're looking at this, 6'3", 232, maybe, right? So he's listed at that, but a lot of people talk about him not being there. Now, we've talked about Bell before on this channel. So if you want to go get a full breakdown of him, I already kind of mentioned it and went over it with you guys when he transferred over to Florida State. So obviously he's not at South Carolina anymore. He's going to be at Florida State. He transferred there. But again, that's where all of his stuff is there. So when you're looking at what he did at South Carolina, 231 yards, 497 yards. Okay, nothing really amazing, right? 2 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns there, 7 touchdowns total. But he's got kind of that skill and that he was up there. He's a top 3 tight end in the class. So I'm talking about scouting, like athleticism and body control. He really pops off for me on the tape. Like, those things really are a lot of fun. Florida State's going to use him too. So Florida State's my favorite to kind of win the ACC next year. I think they're a friend with Jordan Travis. He's going to fit in that offense. They're going to use him at H-back. They're going to really use him there. So maybe he's going to be be that first hybrid that really steps up. So that's why part of me needed to put him in that top 5 for everybody out there, right? So athleticism, body control, versatility, like those are the things that you like. But again, you have the production, blocking, and what the hell position is he going to play? Really, is he 6'3", or is he going to measure at like 6'2.5" or 6'1"? And then what is he, right? But I think you have to put him in the top 5 just because I think the offense that he is in, where he's at now, right? Going forward, going to Florida State. And I think that's what you're looking at. Now, when you're looking at this kind of advanced metrics, the stuff that we put in here, overall, like when you're looking at the top 5, he's not going to fit in there. Like he doesn't fit in any of these categories. That's why you don't see him. And so with Bell, like I think that's the question, right? Now, on the Raider prospects, here are some guys that you guys could be looking at and just saying, okay, who's coming right? So Bryson Nesbitt, so North Carolina kid, he could easily have been at 5. Maybe I should have moved him there. But he's a player that I would definitely kind of target in late in drafts. He looked really good for North Carolina this last year, 6'5", 230 kid. 507 yards and 4 touchdowns. Really, Nesbitt could be 5. So these guys are pretty interchangeable. If you're looking for a deep guy, Nesbitt could be that guy. Terrence Ferguson on Oregon looked well. Elijah Arroyo, like, is he going to step forward in that Miami offense? Gavin Bartholomew is a guy that I don't necessarily love, but I got to put him out there. Thomas Fallon, what is he going to be? Is he going to be healthy? Malachi Matavio, like those are guys that going forward that you could be looking at and saying, okay, are these the on the radar guys? Are these the guys moving forward that we can kind of as sleepers, right? So these are some areas. I really like Nesbitt though. So if you want to put him at that 5, you can. But those are our 2024 tight ends. So those are our guys that you're going to look at. I hope you guys enjoy the video. As always, like again, tight ends are struggling. Don't reach for tight ends if you're in a Devy draft or if you're in a Campus to Can draft. I would not do that. But those are some guys that kind of keep on the radar as their ADP is going. Where do you find them and where do you look for them? So appreciate it. Hit that like and subscribe button. Leave us in the comment. Like, do you trust Bell being in the top 5? What do you think of Brenning Stoll? Do you think Trigg is just kind of a wasted value pick at this point? Someone like, Eric Gilbert's been and all those guys, or are we just kind of going for upside rather than being smart about it, right? So appreciate you guys. I'll check you guys next time.